Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
Welcome, everyone. This is Gavin here from Break Free from Corporate, and I'm really excited today to be talking to one of my good friends, Tran, who I've known for a number of years now. And Terry's been someone I've been following quite closely. He's got quite an incredible story. He's someone who has worked in corporate for many years, and because of a variety of reasons, and he'll talk about this, he decided to make the move out of the corporate world and start his own business. But what's more fascinating about Terry is that and just reading some of the things that have been written about him in recent times, he's got quite an interesting background. And Terry, firstly, welcome to the program, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Terry, I read about you, and I know as well from our previous chats that your story really dates back to the Vietnam War. And I kind of I want people to just understand the challenges and the journey that you came, being a migrant to Australia and, really starting with pretty much nothing and going through all the challenges that you and your family went through, how you got started and really the kind of business you've built today. It's quite an, incredible journey. So I'm really excited to really talk about this today.
Let's get started. I am too.
Okay, excellent. So Terry, just share with our audience, as you know, our audience are people that are looking to make that change or make that transition out of corporate. They're not quite sure how to do it. They're a little bit challenged in terms of timing, finances, what to do, how to do it, etc. So I know you've been through all of this. Walk us back to way before you started your business, and we'll talk about your business in a sec. Tell me a little bit about this story about, your family coming to Australia, being a migrant and the challenges even dating back from then.
Yeah, my story really starts literally 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, we did escape Vietnam, post-Vietnam War, because my father actually ran a fleet of trucks. So he broke through his corporate and was actually also a business person. But when the communism came in, they pretty much took over his trucks, and we had nothing. So we were actually starving as a family. So we knew we had to run. So with what little money that we had left, we bought our ticket to freedom, which is basically a boat ride, and hoping for the best. We were bound for Darwin in our little boat. I believe there was about, funny enough, I've actually got a photo of our boat, and even the boat, a picture of a sinking boat, which was our boat. And we had about 300 people crammed on this little 80-meter tug. And we were lost out at sea for about 3 days, running out of water as well. We didn't have any food. And we were actually very lucky that a cargo ship that was bound for Singapore, they spotted us and literally saved us because our boat was slowly sinking and taking on board a lot of water. So they then, like human cargo, I saw the photos of all the children, including myself, in these cargo nets, and were transported onto the cargo ship and then transported to a nearby island off the coast of Malaysia. And we were processed as refugees, waiting for a country like Australia, Canada, and United States to hopefully take us in. But unfortunately, though, my father did pass away through a freak accident because we didn't have like shelters. Like, you hear of Christmas Island, and there's actually proper homes or shelters. But back then we were in tents. And one day a tree came down on our tent, and my father passed away from that accident.
That's terrible.
So my mother became at that time she was 22-year-old, became a widow at that age. Wow. And I was only 2 at the time. So I did go through quite a lot with my mum. She became, of course, grew up as a single mum. And Australia saw, because of the accident, they speeded up the process, and they took us on board, this, what I call a lucky country. And we ended up being bound for Australia, which was really, I guess, a godsend.
Yeah, and so that's how you ended up in Australia. What a set of circumstances to arrive. That's quite harrowing for most people. That almost sounds like it could be a trailer of a movie,
yeah.
or something. Jeez.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, my first 10 years in Australia, I saw my mum struggle financially. So she worked in two jobs, factory in the morning, try to learn English in the afternoon, and then headed off to wash dishes at an Indian restaurant in Parramatta,
Right.
in New South Wales. So I was just tagged along and I saw all that and how she financially struggled. It was one of my biggest whys of, wanting to look after her once I grew up as well. So as a young child, I already had that vision or that sort of mission in a way.
Yeah. Well, I guess you saw it firsthand what it was like to have to work really hard for your money or your mum in that case, and really struggle through that and the challenges. And I guess you had this burning ambition right from an early age, didn't you?
Definitely, yeah. And it was because of that financial struggle that we had, and it somehow, yeah, lit a fire in me that wanted to just break free and get into a financial freedom ASAP,
Yeah.
and find ways to do that. And of course, did end up in corporate.
And so,
When I started.
yeah, that's fascinating. And obviously your business today is called The Freedom Trader, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But you mentioned obviously then your journey led you into the corporate world, as a lot of people do. You study hard, you get grades, you go into
Yep.
university or college, you end up in corporate. What did you do at corporate?
I was lucky enough to be accepted to one of the accelerated programs through the NAB, so one of the major Australian banks.
Mm-hmm.
So really, in a way, like a typical Asian kid, like you said, studied hard, tried to make my mum proud at the time,
Yep.
and did end up with good grades at uni. The major Australian bank, NAB, picked me up from my grades, and they accelerated me through a number of positions from business banking, then went to branch managing, private banking, and ended up in my last role was financial planning, the senior financial planner.
Yep.
But the thing is that I did work very, very hard though, and the transition was in a way was almost forced because because of the long hours, my body actually suffered physically as well as probably mentally,
Wow.
and I ended up in hospital 5 times because I collapsed.
See, now I know this because I know you from a previous, from obviously many years ago. But for the people that are listening to us and listening to your story now, this is actually quite a common trend that I'm seeing. The more people I talk to that are in high pressured or high sort of ranking roles, like the sort of ones that you did, and they're working long, stressful hours, your body at some point gives way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it gave way in a unexpected way because I ended up in hospital 3 or 4 times already, and
Wow.
I literally just blacked out. But then one day I actually blacked out on the top of a stairway while heading out to lunch, and that was the worst place to black out. And I literally rolled down the stairs, 2 flights of stairs, and ended up on the pavement, and I was concussed. I didn't even remember what was that, and there was actually a passerby that found me on the concrete pavement, all bloodied because I cut because I wear glasses and it was frameless at the time, and he cut one of the arteries above my eye, and I was just bleeding, literally bleeding to death, and ended up in one of the Sydney hospitals.
How many lives do you have, Terry?
At that time, 5.
5. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So obviously, the mental stress, the physical stress of your job and the workload and things like that took its toll. Your body gave way. You ended up in hospital. Then what happened?
Yeah, and I think it was quite sad because it was really one day that it hit me. I was sitting in my hospital bed, and I actually felt alone, and I realized, things got to change. Like, this is the 5th time, and it can't keep on going this way. I didn't know how. I really did not want that another 6th time to happen, and this time it was quite bad because I did roll down the stairs this time. And when I arrived in hospital, the moment I woke up, I actually found my entire white business shirt was just drenched in blood. And I realized this can't keep on going. And that's why I decided, I think it's enough's enough. Let's pursue the other passion that I've always thought about having, which was going to that investment and trading game. And along I went, and I started that journey.
Fantastic. So you've had that passion. I mean, for a lot of, and I want to talk about this in a little bit more detail because some people that I talk to have this passion, but they never, I guess the pain isn't enough for them to want to either explore it fully, or it remains a hobby or something in the back of their mind. And, it's one day I'll get to that. In your case, really that was accelerated because of all the stuff that was going around you, mentally, physically, and your body just telling you enough's enough. But how long did you have this passion of yours? on the side?
I was in the investment game, I was always in a way dabbling, obviously
Yep.
investing my savings from the corporate job, and that was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I decided, let's see if I can do this full time. And because I said, like I said, it was forced. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, let's see if I can actually replace my income. And
Mm-hmm.
truth is, I didn't. The first 2 years was actually really, really bad. I lost about 100,000 from my savings, and I was just getting getting sucked up into these get rich quick programs that were out there.
Yeah, tell me
And
about it.
it was, in a way, it was a lesson I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And I learned how, it's also important to learn how not to do things,
Mm-hmm.
not just how to do things as well.
How not to
So,
do things, yes.
yeah, correct. Yeah, so my first couple of years was a struggle, but then I think it's through persistence, and lucky enough, my wife was working, so there was some income, to keep things going.
Awesome.
But yeah, people see it sometimes as an overnight success, but no, truth is, nothing ever is.
Yeah.
You just got to put in the effort and have that vision of what is it that you want to create, and I just kept on going.
Yeah, and you mentioned something really important there. You had your wife who was working, supporting. I mean, it's so important to have someone who believes in you and supports you. When you are getting, I guess, things off the ground for the first time, isn't it?
A big time, yeah. I think without that emotional support, as well as, of course, financial support,
Yeah.
I definitely would not be here, where I am today.
No, that's awesome. So, all right. So you had this passion. You were trying things. You were, I guess, through trial and error. You were making some mistakes. We get burnt quite often doing that. But you didn't give up, did you?
No, not at all. Because I knew, in a way, I couldn't go back, and I did not want to go back because I've already experienced that enough. And it was just time that let's make my own way in this world and give it all I have. In the end, like there's that one shot. Of course, you can make lessons along the way, and you just learn. As long as you learn from them, just keep on going, and eventually you actually get it right, and which I did.
Well, someone actually said to me, many, many years ago, there's nothing wrong in making mistakes. In fact, mistakes are the only way you actually learn.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you find someone who has done it, and so of course there's proof that other people have done it as well.
Yes.
And my hero at the time was Warren Buffett. Perhaps one of the greatest investors that's ever lived. And I actually wrote to him. And funny enough, within 2 weeks, he responded back. That gave me that. Right. Yeah, and that gave me that inspiration to keep going. And I really studied from him all his investment letters. And at the same time, when talk about that power of attraction, that then opens up doors and I was able to learn from other great fund managers in our country plus overseas as well.
Excellent. And so you mentioned about Warren Buffett. I remember you telling me about this, and I remember reading about this in what you write on your website as well. So in your case, it was really important for you to have someone to look up to, someone who was a mentor, someone who could guide you. And I mean, who better than someone like Warren Buffett? But, that played obviously a very critical role in you moving forward as well, right?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, that hero of mine, and I always wanted to see how he does things. And you never need to reinvent the wheel because things that you want to achieve is already out there, and there's someone out there that has already done it, and always good to learn from them. And at least you save yourself a lot of time and also a lot of frustration from mistakes as well.
Yeah, and also when you follow good mentors, you start mixing in that kind of company. It opens up new doors for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and that's how I ended up having coffees and lunches with all the best fund managers in our own country. And learning from these guys as well. So I always say that I really I'm a result of being able to stand on the shoulder of giants. I'm definitely not self-made. I've learned from others, and they've helped me along the way.
Awesome. And so then you went on this journey. You started crafting your skills together, packaging yourself, really offering value to the world, and you created your business. Tell us a little bit about your business, because I've read a couple of things. I'll just share this with the audience over here. And I find it really fascinating because one of the things you mentioned here is that your company is built on love and care for others, inspiring and opening your mind to what is possible and really helping people, achieve freedom. So I want to explore that a little bit with you. Tell me how you thought of that and what got you on that path.
Yeah, I mean, my first few years, once I got through my era and kept on going, and then I succeeded personally, then I thought, okay, let's start helping other people. So I actually launched about 5 years into it, I launched a private hedge fund, and I
Yep.
started managing other people's money, and then that went well. And it was really only about 5 years ago that I decided that I can look after people's money, but the way to really help even more people was to go out there and educate people even better, because
Yeah.
I just saw all these programs financially hurting people, and I was one of them. 20 years ago, I was actually also one of them that lost out so much money because I believed in these programs, which actually don't work, but they, rather than working, they actually hurt people. And
Yeah.
I wanted to change the industry, so I went out there, not sure whether it will work or not, but I thought, okay, I'll put out what I do, how I manage money, manage other people's money, and basically it is a systemized process,
Mm.
and just started that journey. And of course, it is where it is today. And that mission was really, in the end, educating them, not just giving people the fish, but showing them how to fish. So long term, even if I'm not here one day, they will have that skill for life, and at the same time, they can also pass it on to their children. So I affect the next generation at the same time as well.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, you can help so many people, I guess, doing things one way, but if you can educate them and teach them, like you said, teach them to fish, so you don't have to fish for them, you almost make them independent, and then they can go on and impact their family, their community, and really can. I think you use the words "pay it forward" on your website as well, don't you?
Oh yeah, and I highly encourage also the not just me paying forward, but once I always tell our students, we've got almost 1,000 students now,
Mm-hmm.
and when they succeed, to also pay it forward and make an impact, because firstly, of course, look after themselves, look after their family, but one only needs so much, and just paying it forward either through gifting through charity, or setting up a charity, or even utilizing having free time now, utilizing their time to go out there and help others as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. So, what is your business called, Terry?
The business that I run is the Freedom Trader.
Yep.
So thefreedomtrader.com, and we are a community of over, like I said, almost 1,000 students now, and it's really all walks of life, from corporate employees to business owners as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just helping them create wealth outside their main career. So if something was to go wrong, they're always financially safe.
So it's almost like helping them have a plan B, or like a backup plan.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah, and I truly do believe that whether you've got you're an employee in corporate, hopefully you transition from corporate to a full-time investor, basically as an investor, have portfolios outside that will give you that passive income, or at least, on the other hand, if you're going into business, and once your business is running and humming along and you've got business cash flow, what do you do with that cash flow? Take that cash flow and start investing it and getting far better returns. So you're diversifying away also from your business. So if something goes wrong, or you've got a bit of a period where there's, the income from the business cash flow dries up, you've always got this side of things. And I've seen it happen, time and time again, with all the business I've been able to help now.
Yeah. Because it's one thing to have, your business going well, but there might be times when it's turbulent, and if you have all your eggs in one basket, you really leave yourself exposed, don't you?
Oh, definitely. And I've seen it happen. Like, for example, we've got over 200 at current stance, we've got well over 200 Aussie farmers, even as our students. Mm-hmm. And when the drought came, when the bushfires occurred, the ones who were with me from a long time ago, they started already creating portfolios. So when that period occurred, they were financially okay. So they made it through because their portfolios were supporting them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. And you mentioned, Terry, like obviously in putting this together, now you've been honing in on your craft, you've been getting better at what you do, and you've systemized your business quite well. How important is technology in what you do? Because it's quite a complex business that you're in terms of trading, for some people anyway. And then the fact that you make it easy, how important does technology play a role with what you do?
Very important. I think it's very important that firstly, it's a mindset thing where you should definitely, especially in our world and this period of time, definitely embrace it. Because when I began, I was one of the lucky ones that I began creating an online training platform, knowing that to affect or train the world, I couldn't. I can only train so much in rooms that it will just get packed out. So that was limited, and online allowed me to go unlimited and plus across the world. So I don't just train people in Australia, but I'm also training people from Europe and also Asia and the United States. Yeah. So technology has allowed me to do that. So from day one, we already had that training platform online, plus we're, of course, running online webinars as well. So therefore, people don't have to come to me. They literally just log on and, and they can see me, and I'm teaching them online.
Yeah. And really that is the way of the future. I mean, obviously, people who are listening to this that are highly skilled in whatever area that they're in, let's say they're in financial planning, or they could be, in sales, or they could be in whatever, in some form of teaching capacity, etc. And they've done traditionally one-on-one or physical communication to the other party. Going online actually it makes it so much easier for you to reach people beyond your geographical boundaries. I mean, there really is no limit. And there's some people like yourself who've made it work really well, but there's some people who've just never tried it. They've never ventured out. What do you say to those people who are kind of just holding back, thinking, gee, I don't know if I could do this online, or, could it work? I mean, what would you say to someone like that?
It's always making your first step is always the hardest.
Yeah.
And when I did it, it was actually quite hard as well. And I remember thinking about doing a webinar, and I was learning from this course, because the education's out there, and people who have done it are out there. So I went to I guess the mentors that ran webinars, and they said, if you're planning to do one, it's probably not worth the effort. But if you're planning to do this, time and time again, which I was, definitely learn it. And I can tell you, easily my first 5 were terrible. It definitely was not. If I look back now, I'll definitely laugh at it. But I made that choice, and I just went from it. And you get better over time.
Yes, absolutely.
And even filming yourself or talking on a camera, it's not the most comfortable thing. Yeah. But over time, you get used to it, and you become yourself. And it's very important that you become yourself, because when you're yourself, people, of course, either like you or they don't like you. But you'd rather people like you as you are, rather than putting a facade on and being a person that is really not you. And it can only last so long. But if you're yourself on camera, online, it does not matter. When people see you as you are, 1, you'll have fun, and 2, it's actually much more easier as well.
And it's also, you're being authentic, aren't you? I mean, you are being yourself. You're just giving more people an opportunity to see who you are, what you have to say, but you're still being true to yourself. You're not changing. Your integrity hasn't changed. You're just using another form of media to get out to more people. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. And, and technology sometimes doesn't always go right. Like last week when we ran a webinar, the sound cut out, and we were offline. I was actually offline for 10 minutes.
Oh,
but
wow.
Because I delivered, and that's a long time online. My webinar cut out. I had no sound. And, but because I was teaching well, everyone stayed on, and they just waited. So I literally lost nobody. So I got back on, had to have everybody reboot their PC, get back on, and finally sound came back on, and we kept on going. So technology does have its ups and downs, but of course there's way more ups than the downs.
So really, I mean, if we were to look at technology, if you want to scale your business, or you want to definitely do something, let's say, there are a lot of people who want to be able to work from home these days, or, they just want a more lifestyle balanced business, then technology is something you're almost going to have to embrace, because otherwise you're really trading hours for money, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's the leverage factor, because I can either go one-on-one, helping one person, or to truly affect more people, which was my mission anyway. I had to go online from day dot, and even though it was uncomfortable, now I'm actually very comfortable, because now it's been 5 years in. But I always say, the very first 10 times that you run a webinar, it's you're learning, and you're going to make mistakes. Embrace the mistakes. It's okay. And the main thing I think is not only just have fun, but laugh at yourself, and even laugh at yourself with the audience.
Yeah.
And people see that, things go wrong. I mean, no one's perfect.
Sure.
And as long as you're able to laugh at yourself, you have a much easier time.
Yeah, I never have a problem laughing at myself, but I mean, I think we're all really conscious of people, judging us, thinking, and you just become self-conscious, and that actually stops a lot of people right from the very start. But I like what you said, which is you decided very, very early on, almost right from the beginning, that you were going to do something like this, and you put yourself out there, despite not having the experience to do it, but you really built that over time.
Definitely. And it's like any skill, even an investing skill. It took me at least 3 years to really get at that time, because I had no real person or no system to learn from. It took me all these mistakes, but I kept on going. So like anything, it takes time to learn, and you get used to it. And as you go by, it gets easier and easier.
Excellent. Now, Terry, the other thing I wanted to ask you, because I know there's a lot of people who want to start a particular type of business, or let's say they have a hobby or something. And one of the things they always come back to me is they always say, oh, look, I don't know if that's going to take off. There's so many people who are doing that. Like in your case, for example, you teach people how to trade, how to invest safely and all. But then there are thousands of people who are doing similar sort of things. So why start that? Because, how are you going to stand out in the crowd? And that stops a lot of people from even taking that first step. What would you say to someone who, thinks those sort of thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, people, there were courses out there that said, study your competition, see what they're doing and do it even better, things like that. And funny enough, I did not take that route. I just knew what I wanted to teach. And I had no idea, when I started, I had no idea where this would take off, because there were so many people teaching it, and they were wrong. A lot of them were just losing people's money. But I thought, okay, I'll write I started it off as a simple blog, and I just wrote my heart out. So every day I time locked myself and just wrote without editing, just put out, what a topic for the day, and I just started typing, and I'll edit the post later. And within I'd probably say within 3 months in, somehow my blog was discovered by a overseas, actually a US-based trading publication, and they liked the way I wrote and said, you've got this no BS, no BS approach, no hype. And they asked me, can I write for them every Thursday? And I said, of course I can. And within 3 weeks, they liked it so much they put me on the front page of every Thursday.
Wow.
And again, I just wrote what I truly believe. So you need to know, firstly, why you're doing this. And if you just be you and just put it out there, you actually don't know what ends up happening.
Yeah.
It's that power of attraction. Of course, you need to put in the action and put in the work. But if you put in the work and just doggedly just get the work done and don't think, let go of the negative thoughts. Of course, they're out there.
Yeah.
Let go of it and just take that very first step. And you just don't know where this journey takes you. And I had no idea that I'd be doing this 5 years still, 5 years on, and now having basically all these students now from across the world, and then invited to all, like for example, like your podcast, other podcasts, other on stages to as a guest speaker, things like that. It just happens.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. And I like the fact that you said you just time locked yourself, and you were dedicated, from the beginning to write a blog, whether it was daily, and no matter what, you would just write whatever came to mind. But it's just the act of doing something like that, which again is really powerful, because right at the very beginning, you didn't know where this was going to go. You didn't, you had a vision, but you didn't let yourself get persuaded that it wouldn't work. You weren't attached to any outcomes. And it sounded like you were just prepared to do the daily, weekly actions, to just move this thing forward, even if it was little things like writing a blog at the very beginning.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Truth is, when I wrote my very first blogs, I'm very certain that it's very likely no one even read it. And it was just over time that it started to gain traction. And I remember that people say, what's your traffic? What's your traffic? And the truth is, I actually didn't care. It's like I just write, and fingers crossed, people see it, and then they share it with other people, and then over time it just picked up traction on its own. And even to this day, I don't even look at my traffic. I just focus on one thing, which is serving. And as long as I serve, I know that everything else will work out.
Yeah, you come from a really good space, Terry. Like just if I didn't know you, let's say, and I just came across your website, and if I read what you've got in there, it's a very serving, very giving approach that you have, which is very different to almost every other wealth creation expert I've ever come across, because they're all about, here's how we can help you triple your money and 10 times your results, and that's the kind of speak that comes out. Whereas from you, it's all about how you can help them and how really change their life. And it's a very different approach.
Yeah, no, thank you, Gavin, for noticing that. Yeah, I've always just focused on serving first, and my main thing is, because of all the rubbish that's out there, I just focus on, especially in our industry, I really focused on the downside or protection first. And I always say the profit or the returns are a byproduct of good protection and a good risk management. And if you look after this downside first, the others upside will actually look after itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've been obviously in this business, or the current business that you're in for the last, say, you said 5 years. What are some of the, and obviously you've made some mistakes, you've learned from them. If you had to pick your top 2 or 3 that are common for most people that are starting off, what do you think they are, and how would you suggest people get around them?
I think the very first one, Gavin, is I believe that one must know their why. Why is that they're doing this? Because without your why, you'll end up getting sidetracked. Yeah. So you'll just sometimes whenever you're running or starting something new, especially in business, there's going to be setbacks. But if you don't know your why, that setback is going to stop you, and all these negative thoughts will start coming in. And as long as if you know your why, then you'll get through those. Definitely get through those setbacks. Yep. The other one that I think is if you need to, even if it means going part-time while you're still working, it's a good thing, because people say, I need to do this full-time, and they're scared taking that full-time step. Yes. And it's true, because if you take full-time and you've got no income coming in, your bills don't stop. So then you start worrying about how do you put food on the table, especially if you've got a family and you've got a mortgage. Yeah, how do you have a roof over your head? How do you have food? And even if it means going part-time, some form of part-time work while you're building this thing, yes, it means you have to work harder, but it's worth it, because down the track, you'll have this future business that's going to happen, because if you put in the effort, it will happen. But in the meantime, at least you're not starving, or you've got a roof over your head, and you don't have to make, I call rash or silly decisions just to make money. Or, sometimes if you're forced into doing a sale that should not be a sale, for example, you don't have to do that, because you know that financially you're still okay while building the business that you truly want in a good way.
So it's really being aligned to your why. Making sure you don't get sidetracked, and the whole shiny object syndrome. People
that was my number 3. I was saying definitely also stop moving from shiny object to another. Yeah. Because there's so many shiny objects that are out there, and people go even in my business because I teach stocks and stocks only, because that's what I'm very good at. Yep. And people say, don't you trade? Why don't you teach cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or why don't you trade options? And I've been burnt from all those things, and I don't want people to be burnt from that. So I just know that what works for me, I want to show that and teach that to the world. I don't want to go from another shiny object and be one of those again, because yes, it might sell, but I don't want that, because I don't believe in that product at all.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. They're really good tips. I like them a lot. And in fact, the one you mentioned about going part-time and doing something on the side, I'm a huge fan of, because I've, again, being in the industry I'm in, I work with a lot of people, and I help them to transition. And the transition part is really key, because going cold turkey, or going from 0 to 100 in a completely different industry, or from being an employee to your own business, it's not an easy thing to do. And like you said, the bills don't stop. And
you're correct.
If you just quit your job to start something, and I've seen a lot of people do this, 90% of them end up failing, because it gets too hard. They run out of cash and back to work, and then they pretty much give up on their dream, which is sad.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct.
No, that's awesome. What about, Terry, doing what you're doing, and when you help a lot of people, obviously you're very community oriented. You've built a fantastic community. You serve that community really well. When you were starting your business, and even now, as you're still growing your business, are you part of communities? Do you have people that are like-minded that you keep in touch with? Do you have mentors that you still work with? I mean, how's your external setup, at the moment?
Right. I now these days I associate with, I guess, a lot of friends that are also in business. Yep. So and that grew out of just over time. I didn't plan it, but as you're in this business, you start meeting other people. When you go to sometimes business conferences, investment conferences, and my first initially when I started in the investing front, my mentors were the top fund managers in our country. And it was, of course, Warren Buffett, and then it became fund managers, and I learned a lot from these guys. But then through the business side, when I got into business, again, that was all fresh. But I started going to and being part of, I guess, different business conferences. And I went to those, and sometimes when you sit next to each other, you just become friends, and you find out a bit about each other, and you just naturally create this network anyway. But every week I still now, again, from one of these conferences, I met a very good friend. At that time, of course, didn't know him, but now 3 years in, we just mastermind on a weekly basis, and just seeing how each other's going, and we kick each other along.
So it's really important for people that are listening to this to really build your network, keep in touch with people that are like-minded, because like you said, you might not have anything to do with someone right now, but maybe 3 years down the track, things materialize and suddenly you have a lot in common, but you've built that rapport, you've built that friendship, you have things in common. I think they're really, really good piece of advice. So, because otherwise being in business on your own is very lonely.
Oh, definitely. And even our own community, we've got, of course, almost 1,000 students, but funny enough, the community within those students, because they're everywhere, for example, like in Australia, without me asking them to create it, the community itself, there was actually 1 or 2 people that took lead, and then they started their own Facebook community of our freedom trader groups. So there's Sydney, there's all the major cities all started their own, and then that ballooned, and that happened organically without me asking anybody to do it. They just wanted to. So each state already also created their freedom trader community themselves, and that's also awesome because yes, we've got Inner Circle, which helps the ones who are part of Inner Circle, but the ones who within the program, they're now becoming friends with each other as well within the state.
Yeah. So you're almost like growing a movement, aren't you, in a way?
Basically a movement of safe investing, consistent investing, and that's happening now. Yeah.
And Terry, tell me now, obviously with having your business been established for a number of years now, how important is having a good work-life balance? Do you think you've reached that point? Are you still working on it? And what are some tips you can suggest to our listeners on achieving or working towards a good work-life balance?
Yeah, I myself, if I'm totally honest, I think I'm still working on that.
Mm-hmm.
People, work-life balance is super important because it allows you to rest. And there was this thing that they talked about being in the gray zone. Yep. And sometimes the gray zone means that, sometimes when you're at work, you think about play, but then when you're at play, you think about work, and that's that gray zone. And It's not a good zone to be in because that means you're really, truly not resting. So it should be black or white. When you're working, work hard, but then when you rest and, you're with a family, time out, with a family and friends, have that time out because that recuperates your energy levels. So vitally important. And I'm myself, I'm still working on this, but I try to, for example, go to about, say, Friday afternoons. I try to take Friday afternoons off now, and it has been happening now, which is awesome. And every weekend I'm off. Like I just go out and spend time with the family and friends, and book it in advance, but also even holidays. Plan the holidays in advance. So every 6 months I'm at least usually overseas somewhere for about a month, and you've got therefore have something to look forward to. So you work hard for a reason, but you know that the holiday or this adventure is going to happen in a number of months down the track. Yeah. So you know that the payoff is that you're going to have this rest anyway, so you don't mind working hard.
Yeah. So planning,
and even if it means...
Yep, sorry.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Gavin?
No, I was just going to reiterate one of the things you mentioned. So planning obviously seems to be one of those things that people need to really get good at, planning and time management from the sounds of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and just block time, like I said, block time of when I was writing blogs, but also block time of, say, even if you don't think about overseas, and if more domestic is your thing, that's fine as well. But just block time that, per quarter, you're going to have this longer weekend away with your family or yourself just to rest and recuperate. But if you block it in and just have that as the most important parts first, then you look forward to actually working even harder.
Fantastic. I love it. They're really good tips. And I think no matter what you do or what business you go into, these are going to be the sort of things that build into your why as well, like you mentioned earlier, Terry. And so they motivate you, they inspire you, and they keep you going, even in the tough times, because something good is coming up in the future. So you work hard towards it. Awesome. What I want to do now, Terry, is just like shift gears a little bit, because we've talked about a lot of really important concepts and things, and you know, a lot to digest there, and probably be worth listening to this podcast again. So you take down notes if you need to this time. But what I want to do now with you is just spend literally a couple of minutes, and I call this a rapid response section, because it's just getting you to think quickly, and first thing that comes to your mind. I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So, you know, what is your favorite mode of learning, Terry? You know, do you like video, audio, reading, seminars, or all of the above?
I shifted. I used to love reading, and then I shifted to now with the online platforms. I shifted now to I guess video programs. So when I want to learn something, it's video, and then I've got multiple screens. I just on one screen I'm learning, on the other screen I'm actually taking action right away.
Awesome. Now, do you have well, we talked about this actually earlier, but let's see if you have others. Do you have a favorite role model or hero?
Still to this day, Warren Buffett.
Okay.
Being able to be humble and live simply despite his wealth, and serving others. That's always been his motto, giving back.
Awesome. Any favorite quotes or that you can think of that you'd like to share with our audience?
Because I'm in the investment game, I've always borrowed from the greats, which is really rule 1, don't lose money, and rule 2, don't forget rule 1. So.
I love it. I love it. That's excellent. Okay. And you mentioned about, you know, obviously giving back and helping your community and all that. Is there any particular cause or charity that you're either involved in or support or endorse or would like to mention on this call?
Yeah, I mean, there's two primary. In November last year, I was actually invited to Ulasaba. So I spent 2 weeks with Sir Richard Branson.
Wow.
Basically, going onto all the safaris with him, and he, of course, it was part of that Virgin Unite cause, and so I learned a lot about Virgin Unite and supporting their cause, and at the same time, you know, within domestically, I'm also supporting the wildlife, which is Animals Australia.
That is amazing. Fantastic. Now, I know I've known you for a number of years, but a lot of our listeners may not know you. Is there anything that might be a little bit quirky or funny, perhaps, that you don't mind sharing on this call, just so people can get a different perspective of you?
Right. Being in the investment game, a lot of people see me as quite serious. When you get to know me, I've actually got all these. I'm actually quite humorous.
I know this. I know that. Yep. Yeah.
So like I said, I love laughing at myself. I don't mind that. And you know, and being able to share a joke and not take life too seriously.
Yeah, fantastic. So, you know, I've really enjoyed talking to you about this, Terry. I mean, you and I have been keeping in touch over the years, and I've watched your journey grow and all of that, and it's still continuing to accelerate. Where do you see things going for you in the future? Like, what is the plan? Have you, are there more things that you've got that you're working on, and what can people expect that are listening to you?
Yeah, I've always had this mission of helping my first 10,000 students. So that's still on the agenda. But at the same time, I also thought about the customer experience or the student experience. So rather than focusing on the number, that's great. But at the same time, I'm actually revamping the whole thing, my whole blueprint program, and ensuring that whoever comes on board, they have the ultimate experience. So from day one, the moment they become a student, they've got this journey that they know that over the next 90 days, they'll get their outcome. So that's always been my thing, and we're actually revamping the whole thing to get them there. So that's what I'm working on right now. So the experience, the journey, all of that is now the priority, and as you accelerate and obviously grow the business. Yeah, correct. I've some people focus on growth. I want sustainable growth. So growth where I have fun, they have fun, and the student has that experience where they said, Terry or the Freedom Trader, that's the ultimate. That's the program that they when they look back, they'll never regret making that decision. And then of course that word of mouth spreads, and that's always been how we grew. It's always been word of mouth. Until about 2 months ago, we weren't even advertising. It was just word of mouth, and that's how we grew. That's amazing. Well, that's testimony to what you do. So, Terry, how do our listeners or anyone that gets access to this podcast, how do they get in touch with you? If they wanted to access your programs or your website, or even personally get in touch with you, what's the best way? The best way is probably even coming to our free training, because on a monthly basis, I do a free, basically live training. And so I've even just created a URL, which is the thefreedomtrader.com. Yep. and / tie in with your tribe, break free. So
Okay.
it's freedomtrader.com / break free. Register, come along. You're going to learn a lot in that an hour and a half, 2 hours, because I just teach my guts out. And even after that 2 hours, you're probably going to even the people who come along will even definitely understand more about the markets than a lot of pros that are out there as well.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. In fact, I might even jump on there just to learn a little bit about what you teach and all that, because I think it's so important to have that extra, like another plan B, even outside of your plan B, perhaps. I think, and I encourage everyone who's listening to this, check it out, because Terry's got a lot of knowledge built over many, many years of experience. I think you'll benefit immensely by going there and just having a listen and picking up some of these skills. Terry, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate you coming in and just chatting with us and really pouring your guts out on this call. And I guess what an amazing story. And I really hope it inspires people that are listening to it.
No, thank you, Gavin, for having me, and it was a pleasure as well.
Wonderful. All the very best to you. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Gavin.
If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.